When it's hot outside, the only thing I want to eat is chilled and raw seafood. So today, I've got a great way to make the perfect shrimp cocktail. Stay tuned. Well, hey, welcome. I'm Tony. Thanks for joining us here at Filling the Food. And today, this is dead simple and is going to go very, very quickly. Typically, when you make shrimp cocktail, most of the ways I've ever seen in my career, people tell you to start with a big pot of boiling water, and you can throw all kinds of aromatics in, then you plunge shrimp in, and you cook them perfectly, and then you chuck them in ice water. And while we're going to do some of that today, we're actually going to start our shrimp cocktail in cold water. That's right, we're going to bring it up slowly. Now, I learned this technique when I was working and living out on Nantucket, and it makes so much sense. It's a little bit counterintuitive from everything I've ever been taught, and even what I have taught in culinary schools. But this is going to be a great way to do this at home. Now, I'm starting today with some beautiful shrimp. I've got beautiful 13-15 shrimp that I picked up at the store, and I peeled and deveined these. And you can buy already peeled shrimp or deveined shrimp if you want to. I don't ever suggest buying the pre-cooked. You don't know what those have been cooked in, and you can't really customize the flavor. So I've got these beautiful peeled and deveined shrimp. These are going to go into a small, shallow sauce pot, just like so. And of course, these are thawed. You don't want to do this from frozen. A couple of cloves of garlic, as always. Some fresh thyme if you want to, that would be fine. I'm gonna throw a good amount of salt in here. I'm talking to make the salt water, to make the water almost as salty as the ocean, so pretty salty. I'm probably adding, I don't know, that's probably 3 tablespoons in there, maybe probably 2 full tablespoons. And then I'm gonna add a little bit of lemon, both the juice I'm gonna squeeze in, and then I'm just gonna throw the halves in there as well. Whew. And this is so perfect. The shrimp I'm using today are size 13-15, which means they're 13 to 15 per pound. Those numbers you see when you're buying many types of seafood is what we call count per pound. So the bigger that number is, the smaller the shrimp is, and usually the cheaper it is. As that number goes down, the shrimp get bigger, and not only do you get fewer per pound, but the more they cost. So I'm gonna cover this with cold water. I'll meet you at the stove. All right, now I've got my shrimp here at the stove, and again, the whole purpose of starting slow is so that we don't have to stop the cooking perfectly right when the shrimp are 100% well done, driving a million miles an hour in boiling water. The analogy I use is like driving through a school zone. The slower we go, the more time we have to react. But if we are driving a million miles an hour, it's really hard to stop really quick, even if we're plunging these shrimp in an ice bath. That analogy doesn't work with kids in a school zone, but you know what I'm talking about. I don't want to have to stop the cooking in a very, very small window. I want to give myself as much time as I can to get them perfect. And so I put these on the stove in this cold water with all my aromatics in there, and we crank up the heat to high. As it comes up, you're going to start to notice that these shrimp turn opaque. And I'll stop and I'll test one after a couple of minutes. My general rule of thumb is I give it about 2.5 to 3 minutes as it's coming up. And as I start to notice them turning color, then I'll take a peek, and it's 1 minute segments in kind of increments after that, and then plunge into my ice water as needed. Now I've got a big bowl of ice water in my sink here, and I've got the big cubes. I'm a whiskey drinker. That's really all I have is the big ice cubes, which is kind of a nice luxury, but any ice water will do. But it's important to note that you really want to season your shock water. It doesn't do us any good to season our cooking water really, really well if we then turn around and plunge it into fresh water with no flavor and no seasoning in it at all. We'll rinse away all that flavor. So it's important while your shrimp are cooking, get your ice bath going. Get a little bit of salt in there. And again, a couple of really good pinches. I don't need this as salty as the sea, but it should be pretty salty. Salty. Working with these pink shrimp, it can be a little bit difficult to tell when the shrimp are cooked because typically you have a gray shrimp that turns pink when it's cooked. So it takes a little bit of extra care if you use pink shrimp, whether it's Key West pink shrimp or royal red shrimp or something like that. So just something to keep in mind and be careful of. All right, I think these shrimp are pretty close. The best way to tell is to just taste one. And frankly, that's one of the advantages of being the person that has to cook them. You get to eat more of them. So I'm gonna grab one while it's still hot. Whew. Perfect. Let's get them out. All right, so these just get drained right into a little strainer, like so. Easy enough. And into my ice water. Okay, I've got my shrimp all chilled down. They're in a bowl out of the ice water. And you can just discard that ice water. You don't need it anymore. Keep these cold. They can be done up to a day or two ahead of time. I wouldn't do it much further than 2 days. Let's make a quick cocktail sauce. I don't know why they call it cocktail sauce, but it's delicious. And so here's a really simple and quick one for you to do at home. I'm gonna take a little bit of ketchup, whatever brand of ketchup that you like. And I don't have quantities. You can see how I do this here, and feel free to doctor it as you want. I'm gonna do a bunch of ketchup, and this is just for me, but I like a lot of cocktail sauce. Not a surprise. I think my first raw oyster that I ever had was 90% cocktail sauce, 10% oyster, and I slowly ramped it down. But I still love it. It's delicious. A little bit of prepared horseradish. Now, I was hoping to find some fresh horseradish at my grocery store. I found some, but I could bend it in half. It was so kind of old. And so make sure that it's really crisp and nice and beautiful. The prepared stuff will be just fine. So I like mine pretty spicy, a little horseradish kick there. So that's probably a good heaping tablespoon, probably 4 to 1 ketchup to horseradish so far. I'm gonna add a little bit of Old Bay into mine. Now you could add salt, you could add cayenne in there if you want to, and pepper and all that. And I would suggest doing that if you're not gonna add Old Bay, but I like Old Bay and I had some kicking around, and so we'll add a little bit of this. Don't need a whole lot. Keep in mind, Old Bay has salt in it, and so you can really overseason if you're not being careful. That's a couple of good pinches worth of Old Bay. Now, to replace the celery seed flavor that I really, really love in a cocktail sauce, I'm just going to use a bit of fennel pollen. Of course, I've done videos on how to harvest your own fennel pollen, and there's a ton kicking around right now, and so just a little pinch in there. And I think that covers some of those flavor profiles that you get from celery seed, and it's a little bit fennel-y, of course. Cracked black pepper. Now, if you're making this cocktail sauce for the moms and dads out there and you're not going to share with the kiddos, then if you want to turn this into a Bloody Mary cocktail sauce, a splash of vodka is advisable. If you want to make it Bloody Maria style, a shot of tequila in there, or serve those chilled on the side, that's absolutely fine as well. A little bit of lemon juice to finish this off, and we're basically right there. And just a quick mix. That should come right together. Ooh, I got a lot of horseradish in there today. I'm gonna clear out my sinuses. Quick taste. Woo! All that needs is shrimp. Good thing I've got some. Poaching shrimp is really simple. Start in your cold water that's really well seasoned and bring it up slow. Keep an eye on how well it's done. Pull it out and shock it in an ice bath to stop the cooking immediately. It's important you season that ice bath too so you don't dilute the previous seasoning work you've done to get into that shrimp. The cocktail sauce, chuck everything in a bowl, and I hope you find these flavors complimentary. It's going to be a great rest of the summer, and we hope you think so too. Like and subscribe, tell your friends and enemies, and we'll see you next time at Fill in the Food.